All right, and welcome to this course where I talk about self-publishing on Amazon KDP and what you need to do as a children's book author in order to initially publish your children's book and how you can do it all for free. So with Amazon KDP, if you haven't heard of it, it is Amazon's self-publishing print-on-demand platform. This is really awesome because it's really accessible to beginners and you're just trying to pave your own way and you're not trying to spend too much money to do this. So you can do this with Amazon KDP. To explain KDP and what that stands for, it stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. So whenever I refer to Amazon KDP, that's what I'm talking about. So in order to get started, all you need to do is go to Kindle Direct Publishing. So self-publishing, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, you get it. Now I already have a bookshelf. So I already went through and I created my account. I put in all of my tax information, all that good stuff. And I've already published books. So I already have books on my bookshelf here. So you can see my books. So when you go into Amazon KDP, you have to sign up, put in your tax info, your address, any business information required. It's pretty easy to set it up. And then you're going to get to this portion, which is called the bookshelf. So then to publish a new book, all you need to do is go to create new title or series. So this is how we're going to publish our paperback book. So I'm going to go through step by step and I'm going to show you how I fill in everything with a book that I wrote and illustrated, but I haven't published yet. So I'm just going to publish it for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to go through everything step by step with you. So for language, you're going to pick your language. Mine is English, so I'm going to keep it like that. So then your book title and then subtitle. You don't need a subtitle, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So you're going to add your book title. So mine is The Day the Sun Came Out to Play. So then for a subtitle, you should add a subtitle if your book touches on a topic that is relevant and searchable and or like trendy. So for example, I have a book called Doppy Saves the Bees. That is like my best-selling book. The subtitle for Doppy Saves the Bees is an educational rhyming picture book about bee conservation for kids. So it adds to the search engine optimization on Amazon KDP. You can rank and search better. Plus, your reader or potential customer knows what your book is about just by looking at the book title and the subtitle. So they wouldn't really need to know you in order to buy your book that way. I don't have a subtitle for mine, so I'm just going to leave that. So a series is optional. If this is your first book and you don't know if you're going to do a series, I would just skip this. You don't need to do add to series. But if you want to sell more books and you know that you're going to do books that touch on similar topics or like a general topic, you should do a series because on Amazon, the books that are in series tend to get bought together more frequently. So if you've noticed when you go to buy something on Amazon, it'll say, okay, frequently bought together or buy the whole series, and it will have all your book titles laid out and then a big button that says add all three to cart or add both to cart. So I highly recommend doing a series if you're really serious about publishing and you want to like compound your book's growth and sales over time. Consider writing a series. But for my book, this is not going to be part of a series, so I'm just going to skip that. Then edition number tells the readers whether the book is an original or updated version. So I'm not republishing this. This is the first time that I'm publishing this book, so I'm not going to put an edition number because this is the first edition. But if you are republishing a book, for example, and you change some things on the manuscript, in the interior files, anything, you should put an edition number. But since I don't need to do that, we're going to skip it. So now we're to author and contributors. If you're just the author, you're just going to put in your pen name or your first and last name, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So then for your description ideally should be search engine optimized, and you should add keywords and long tail keywords so that way it ranks better on Amazon. But also you want your description to be like a sales page for your book. Like it needs to be like convincing people to buy your book, especially if they don't know who you are and they've never seen your book before. Make your description something that is intriguing to the customer and talks about like what your book is about, what topics it covers. Make sure to add your keywords, all that. Going through the description and making it search engine optimized and adding keywords and making it into like a really good description is going to be a different module. So stay tuned for that one. And I'm just going to leave this blank because I don't have a description written out because I do that in a different module. So then publishing rights. So unless this is a public domain work, so that means like if you've heard like Winnie the Pooh is a public domain work now, which means it's like over a certain amount of years old. I think if it's older than 100 years old, it becomes public domain and that anybody can use that story. But most of the time, you're not going to be publishing a public domain work. So you're going to click, I own the copyright and I hold the necessary publishing rights. Okay, and then primary audience. If it's a children's book, you're going to hit no. Please hit no. Okay, so then reading age. So this one you should do a little bit of research on. Like if it's a picture book, it's going to be for a younger audience. If there's like a certain amount of words, my picture books, they're about 500 to 700 words and 30 to 32 pages. My age group is from 3 to 5. You can also Google like different age categories and like what reading level they're at too. That will help you determine your reading age. This is optional, but it only helps optimize your book listing. So I would pick your reading age. Okay, and then we're going to pick our primary marketplace. So that's basically where you live or where most of your book sales are coming from. I live in the US, so it's going to be Amazon.com. But you can pick all of these different Amazon storefronts. But okay, just going to keep it at Amazon.com. Then categories. This is where it gets kind of confusing. You can do a quick Google search if you want, but there are different tools that you can get to help you pick categories. And I go through that in a different module as well. So stay tuned for that. So when you go in to choose your categories, you're going to select like what your topic is and like what genre your book is in. So the first one is going to be like children's books, and then you pick another subcategory. So mine is about like nature basically. So I'm going to do science, nature, and how it works. And then you can go in over here and then pick like what is most relevant to you. And I'll say probably environment and ecology. But there is a better, more optimized way to pick your categories and subcategories to help you rank in Amazon better when you do get book sales, and then for Amazon to push out your books. And like I said, that's going to be in a different module. But for right now, we'll just do this. And you can add up to 3 categories. So you're just going to repeat for each of these. So pick different categories, and then we're going to hit save categories. Then this next one is, does your book classify as any of these types? Low content books, so that's journals, notebooks, and planners. Children's books are not low content books. Also, your book isn't going to be a large print book either. This is for like an older audience. So you're not going to click either of these. So we'll just skip on by. Then keywords. So your keywords need to be related to the topic and category of your book in order for Amazon to place your book accordingly in their marketplace. So you can find keywords a bunch of different ways. You can find them on Amazon, you can find them on Google, but it's basically going to be a phrase that people type in to find that kind of book. So for example, like my book, Doppy Saves the Bees, one of my keywords is like bee book for kids or bee conservation book for kids or, et cetera, et cetera. But just like in categories, there is a more in-depth way of finding keywords and finding the most optimized keywords, and that's going to be in a different module. And it does say that keywords are optional, but you should definitely fill out every single one of these keyword boxes. It's only going to help you rank on Amazon. Okay, and then publication date. So since this book wasn't published before, the publication date and release date are the same. So then on your release date, you can schedule when you want to release your book, or you can release it right then and there. I recommend that you schedule it just to give you peace of mind, and Amazon can go through your books like manuscript and description, all that. Make sure it is properly categorized on Amazon before you publish it. So I'll just schedule my book's release. So if you are going to schedule your release, you know when your launch date's going to be. Make sure you edit anything you need to edit before this date that they give you, so that way they don't publish it with the wrong information. So then once all that's filled out, we're going to do save and continue. All right, now we're into the paperback content. So this part for ISBN, if you don't know what an ISBN is, it's basically like a social security number for each format of your book. So if this is a book that you don't even know if you want to offset print in the future, or you don't know if you want to do wholesale in the future, like you're not trying to make this into a big business, although if you are seeing this video, you're probably going to make it into a big business. So I would recommend not using the free KDP ISBN. I would recommend buying your ISBN from the appropriate ISBN seller in your country. So if you're in America, that's going to be Bowker.com, BOWKER.com. That's the only place that you can buy ISBNs in America. But if you do a quick Google search, you'll find what website sells ISBNs for your country. So in here, you're going to add in your own ISBN. And I have a whole other video talking about ISBNs that's going to be in one of the other modules in here. So go ahead and watch that if you are a little bit confused. And for the purpose of this demonstration, I am just going to use the free KDP ISBN because I'm not going to use one of the ISBNs that I purchased. But if you are going to use an ISBN that you purchase, you put in the ISBN, so the International Standard Book Number in here, and then your publisher name, so your imprint. For example, my publishing imprint company's name is Doppy's Publishing, but you just put in your information, but I'm just going to do this one for the purpose of this demonstration. So then in here for your print options. So because we're doing children's books, you're going to want to use color interior. So I always pick premium color interior with white paper because in children's books, illustrations are incredibly important. Like it's one of the most important factors in your children's book. So making sure it is premium color with white paper does make it a little bit more expensive for print costs, but it's fine. It's all worth it. It's for the kiddos. Okay, and then trim sizes means what size you want your book to be. So my books are typically 8.5 by 8.5. But you can do a quick Google search to figure out what trim size you want it to be. And then if you want to find a trim size that is appropriate on Amazon, you have to go to select more trim sizes, go in here and find the trim size that you want. So I'm just going to pick my normal 8.5 by 8.5. Then for bleed settings, because it is a children's book and it is mainly illustrations, you are going to need bleed. So bleed means if you have images that go all the way to the edge of the piece of paper, when they're printing it, they're going to have to cut off some parts. So you add that extra space for when they're trimming it. So you do need to click bleed PDF only. And then paperback cover finish, this is completely up to you. I always do glossy. So if you can see the shine, that just means it's glossy, or you could do matte. It's completely up to you and however you want your book to look. Okay, and then uploading your manuscript. So this is where you upload your formatted file, and it has to be a PDF, doc, or HTML or RTF. I just recommend using a PDF. Like, it's just going to be a lot easier for you. And you have to make sure that bleed is included into your manuscript because they're going to reject every time you upload your manuscript if you don't have bleed, and you have to make sure that everything is within a certain dimension. But I talk about how to format your children's book on Canva in a different module, so go ahead and look for that to actually get your manuscript formatted properly. Okay, and then your book cover. So this is where you're going to upload your book cover. You should do basically the same thing with your manuscript and have a print-ready PDF. You should design it yourself. I don't recommend using the cover creator because covers on children's books are very, very, very important. So you should upload a cover you already have. So in order to get your ideal template from Amazon to get your book cover uploaded and like accepted by Amazon, we're going to go to Google. Then we're going to go to book cover template, Amazon, KDP. Then you're going to come up to KDP cover calculator. So we're going to click that. Okay, and then we're going to enter in our book information. Our binding type is paperback. So we're going to click paperback, interior type, premium color, paper type, white paper, reading direction. If you're in America, it's going to be left to right. Then measurement units, we're going to do inches because I'm in America. Then interior trim size. This is where you're going to pick the trim size that you already picked in Amazon KDP. Mine is 8.5 by 8.5. And then page count, you need to know how many pages or approximately how many pages you're going to have in your book. So for mine, I know it has 32 pages, so I'm going to put that. And then we're going to do calculate dimensions. Okay, and here it has generated our template. So now we're going to go to download template, go up to our downloads. Okay, and then this is the PDF version of our book cover template. So when you're going through and making your book cover, you have to make your book cover and your back cover at the same time. And this red part is where it's going to get cut off. So this is your bleed section. So make sure to fill the whole entirety of this template, but make sure all of your important stuff is within the red lines. So all of your text, important images, icons, website names, title is within the red boundary because Amazon KDP will deny you and reject your book cover and you'll have to redo it and it's a giant pain in the butt. So when you're making your book cover, you can download this PDF and you can upload it into Canva or Procreate or whatever software that you use to create your book cover and design with this as your guide. Okay, and then to upload your cover file, you're just gonna hit upload your cover file, look for it, and then add it. Okay, and then your cover will be uploaded successfully if it accepts it. So then for the barcode, if you're just using KDP for paperback printing and not for hardcover printing, if you're not wanting to do any offset printing with paperbacks, you don't need to buy a barcode. You can just use Amazon's barcode and they'll just automatically put a barcode on there for you, so you don't need to worry about that. But if you want your books to go into bookstores and you want to sell to them directly, you should have your own barcode. So then you would click, yes, my cover has a barcode. All right, so then this portion is pretty new. It wasn't here like 3-ish years ago. So AI generated content. Did you use AI tools in creating text, images, and or translations in your book? So if you used AI at all, especially for illustrations, you have to click yes. But for me, no, which is preferred, but got to do what you got to do. Okay, and then here is our summary. So this is what our printing cost is going to look like. So it is going to cost $4.20 per book on Amazon.com, and then it will go through and list all the different cost prices in the different Amazon storefronts. So we're going to click save and continue to move on to the next part. All right, now we're into paperback rights and pricing. So this is just all the little finicky details that Amazon needs you to go through. So when we're in territories here, it says select the territories where you have rights to sell this book. This will determine where the book is available for sale. So most of the time you're going to have worldwide rights because it says this option allows customers to buy your book in all Amazon marketplaces we support. If your book is original content, i.e. no elements of the work are copied from another work or are derivative, and you're publishing for the first time, i.e. you haven't previously granted rights to anyone else, then you most likely have worldwide rights. So just click worldwide rights if that applies to you, because most of the time it will. Then primary marketplace, mine is Amazon.com. We already selected this, so it's just showing us again what our primary marketplace is. Then going down here to pricing, royalties, and distribution. So this is kind of like the fun part because you get to pick how much you want to list your book for. So for this, you kind of have to be strategic on what you want to price it at. So it's good to go into Amazon and look at all the different children's books and look at the page count, look at the trim size, look at the topic, and then look at the age range of each book to determine what price would be suited for your paperback. My paperback books that are 8.5 by 8.5, they're 32 pages and they are meant for ages 3 through 5. I always price those at $10.99 because that price point with the cost it takes to print, it leaves me with like $2 and change for a royalty for when somebody orders a print book. And $10.99, it shows that it is valuable enough, but it's also still like an accessible price. And also at that price, Sometimes Amazon will run these like random sales on your books, and they can do whatever they want because it is technically on their site. So when they drop that price down, I still have a little wiggle room for the most amount of royalties that I can get, because I put a lot of work into my books and I put a lot of love into my books. And at the end of the day, this is a business, so you have to think about it from a business owner's point of view. So on my marketplace on Amazon.com, it says the minimum is $8.40, and then the max is $250. $250 for a children's paperback book is crazy. I would say stick between the $9.99 range and the $12.99 to $13.99 range. That is just my own personal opinion. Honestly, pricing is up to you, and you can always go back in and change your price later. If you do change your mind about your price, if you think your price is too low or your price is too high, you can always just go back in and you can change it. That's not a big deal. So I'm just going to put $10.99 because that is what I normally do. Then once we actually enter in our price, it's going to show our printing cost, so that is $4.20. Then for Amazon, the rate is 60%, and then our royalty is $2.39. So this box here is expanded distribution. So enrolling in expanded distribution means large distributors may add your book to their catalog. Online retailers outside of Amazon, libraries, universities, and booksellers then will have the choice to purchase your book from those distributors. So there are specific details and requirements that you do have to have in order to get expanded distribution. So you can click in here and then you can read to see what the requirements are. But from my understanding, if you pick expanded distribution, you're probably not going to be on Ingram Spark, or it might be a compete clause with Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark is also a self-publishing platform. It's basically print on demand, just like Amazon KDP. But Ingram Spark is often known as the place where independent bookstores buy copies of authors' books. So look into that. If you are going to do Ingram Spark, then don't click this expanded distribution just in case, because that is what Ingram Spark is expanded distribution. But obviously do your own research, because I'm not on Ingram Spark. I do wholesale from a different platform because I only do wholesale with my board books that I have offset printed. So do your due diligence, look into that, see if it'll work for you. From expanded distribution, my royalty would be 20 cents a unit, which is so low, and that's why you should look at wholesale outside of Amazon KDP. Okay, and then under terms and conditions, it can take up to 72 hours for your book to be available for purchase on Amazon. That is them doing their due diligence and looking through your manuscript and your content, making sure it is appropriate for the age group that you listed it for, and making sure that your interior files are going to work with their printer, so give it up to 72 hours. Sometimes it does take longer, so when you're uploading your paperback book, make sure that your launch is like far in advance. Like, don't try to do this a week before your launch, because you're probably going to miss your launch date. Okay, and then this is important. Request a book proof. You need to get a printed preview of your book before it goes live, because you don't know what it's going to look like until it's printed out. You know, things look very different from a computer screen or an iPad screen or a phone screen onto a printed book. So also for me, I find more mistakes with printing on a printed out book that Amazon sends to me. So I always get a book proof as soon as I upload it, just to make sure that nothing gets cut off, make sure I have no typos. I don't know why, but it's easier for me to see where the mistakes are on a printed copy. So highly recommend that you do that. And then this is the end. This is where, like, we've gone through all those steps. We've added all of the information necessary. Now we can go ahead and publish our paperback book. But in the previous section, if you hit schedule your release, when you hit publish your paperback book, it's going to publish it on the day that you scheduled it for. So I know this wording looks scary because it looks like it's just going to be live right away. It does take up to 72 hours for processing, so you have that buffer. But if you scheduled the release, it will schedule it at the day that you picked. And if you're not ready, you can just go to save as draft, and then it will just save into your bookshelf for later. All right, I really hope you found this module on how to self-publish a children's book very useful and informative. And if you did like it, please go ahead and physically like it down below, like hit that like button. And if you want to get the free templates and free guides and more free resources attached to this self-publishing course, go to my free school community. You can find the entire How to Self-Publish a Children's Book course on School completely for free. And when you join School, you get the bonuses that I mentioned already. But you also get a thriving children's book author community as well as direct support from me. If you have a question, just ask it in the community and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And also in this free school community, you get an exclusive once-a-month training from yours truly. You can't find those anywhere else, not on YouTube, not on Google. They're only on School. So go to the first link in my description to join School and access all those bonuses. And to continue on with your self-publishing journey, watch this video next and make sure to follow for more children's book marketing and publishing tips.